Welcome to Positive Talk Daily. If you're someone looking for a new iPhone, should you upgrade to the iPhone 16? If you're coming from an iPhone 12, 13, 14, or even 15, is it really worth the upgrade? With its slimmer design, is it really worth the upgrade? Today on Positive Talk Daily, should you upgrade from, say, an iPhone 12, 13, 14, even the 15 to the latest 16? And this fall, we are already talking about the iPhone 17 series of phones. That question is kind of difficult to ask because if you're coming from, say, an older iPhone from, say, 5-6 years ago, I'd say if you're coming from, say, like an iPhone 10R, 10s Max, yeah, it might be worth an upgrade. Maybe the iPhone 11 as it's getting slowly phased out. That could be worth the upgrade. Today on Positive Talk Daily, should you upgrade to the iPhone 16? Obviously, it is a good phone, but if you're rocking a phone from the last, say, 4 or 5 years, and you're still getting continuous Apple updates, there's some reasons why you might want to hold off on that new iPhone 16. I'm going to go over that right now on Positive Talk Daily. We are going to be doing a full video review of the iPhone 16 Pro Max coming up in the next couple of weeks. There are some new features to the new iPhone 16 Pro Max. There's a new dedicated action button, which used to be a lock button, which they removed for a physical button. And now you can use that to launch certain applications, which the iPhone 15 doesn't have, or even the 15 Pro Max. There are also new Motion. Motion Plus is also new, Apple Intelligence added to the new iPhones, so that is pretty cool. You are getting a slightly larger display if you go with an iPhone 16 Pro or Pro Max. On the Pro Max, you're going from, say, a 6.7-inch screen to a 6.9-inch screen, so that is good news there. Also, you're looking at more storage and more options with the new iPhone. But as we've seen in reviews, a lot of people are not too happy with Apple Intelligence. Some people say it's sloppy. Some people say it's not accurate. Again, we still have to do a full video review. But the question really is today, if you're coming from an older iPhone, the real question is it worth an upgrade? That's what we're going to talk about now. What a lot of people don't understand is the older iPhones are still using the latest software. So a lot of these software updates are going to come down to the older iPhones. Let's say you're coming from an older iPhone, say, 12, you're still going to be getting, iOS 18. You're still going to be getting all the same software features. Maybe not Apple Intelligence, but you will be getting some of the same features. If you're coming from an iPhone 15 or 15 Pro, especially the 15 Pro, you will still get Apple Intelligence. The biggest thing with the new iPhone 16 series of smartphones, they now have the iPhone 16e. The iPhone 16e is a much budget-friendlier iPhone 16 that gives you one single camera, which is a 48-megapixel camera, which we're going to have our hands on Tuesday. And I think on Wednesday we will do a video unboxing that right here on Positive Talk Daily. So stay tuned for that. The 16e is rocking a 6.1-inch screen. It is a Retina HD, which is nice. So it's bringing in the old iPhone 14 body. It's bringing the same shell of the iPhone 14 to the 16e. The 16e is a $500 smartphone. The only problem with the 16e is it's a bit expensive. And it's more than what most people want to pay for a brand new iPhone. The thing with Apple is, and I'm not saying they're ripping people off. In some areas they may be. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. One area where I think Apple keeps making problems is releasing a budget iPhone. Every few years they release an iPhone SE. The SE is more of the budget-friendly handset from Apple, and it's usually the more budget-friendly option. A lot of times they recycle the older iPhones. So starting with the iPhone SE 1 generation or first generation, they used the iPhone 5S shell, and then they put the chipset of the iPhone 6S in there. So the same chipset that was in the 6S, they moved into the SE first generation. Then in 2020, they released the second generation iPhone SE, which had the iPhone 8 body. And they recycled that for the 2022 iPhone SE third generation. So it's like Apple keeps recycling older bodies to, make their phones cheaper, which in some ways is smart, but dumb to also make people pay overpriced, paying, say, $300-400 for a phone that has ancient technology built into it. Coming up this week, we are going to review the iPhone 16e. And the 16e is basically an iPhone 14. It's basically rocking the same body as the iPhone, 14 from, 3 years ago. It's rocking that same clamshell. They just put the iPhone A18 chip in there with one less core, giving you pretty much iPhone 16 chipset power. The one we're going to be looking at is a 512 gigabyte model. So the real question is, should you upgrade coming from, say, an iPhone 12? The answer is maybe. If you're coming from something older than, say, if you're coming from, say, the iPhone 10, 10s Max, 10R, iPhone 11, yes. These phones are probably worth an upgrade after, obviously the iPhone 11 is still being sold on Straight Talk, Track Phone, if you walk into your local Walmart. So the iPhone 11 has one more year of updates. So if you do have an iPhone 11, say a Pro Max or something like that, maybe hang on to it for a little bit longer. But I would say that the iPhone 11 is on life support, as it, if you have an older model, it probably has an older battery that's less than 80% health on the iPhone 11. iPhone 11 came out in 2019, so it's a pretty long time ago, about 6 years ago. So it's probably due for an update. So if you're coming from an iPhone 11 and lower, then yes, it may be time to look at a upgrade, because you're going to see significant differences. The newer iPhones have 120 hertz refresh rate on them. They're usually pretty snappy as well. And they're not going to be slow. They're going to run pretty smoothly overall. They're all going to run pretty butterly smooth. They're not going to have too many hiccups. And with that 120 hertz refresh rate, you're going to be getting a really solid smartphone with, say, an iPhone. What I would say is, if you're coming from, say, like an iPhone 12, it's probably time to start considering an upgrade, but maybe wait a little while. Depending on your battery health on the phone, maybe you just bought an iPhone 12, because iPhone 12 and 13 seem to be the new budget iPhones. I would say if you're looking to upgrade to the 16e, that's the lowest tier iPhone 16 they have. That's kind of their budget consumer, their mid-range level phone. They still want $600 just for a 512 gigabyte model, which I think is ripping people off. I think I can see them selling an iPhone 16e more in the $300 category. A lot of carriers have it on sale right now. It has that new C1 chip. That's their new data chip that they're using for cellular coverage. So it will replace the Snapdragon chipset that they were using for cellular connectivity. Okay. Moving further, you will be getting upgraded cameras. Most of the new iPhone 16s have basically 48 megapixel cameras. So if you're coming from an older 12 or 13, you will see a significant upgrade from what you see in these cameras here. You will get a slight upgrade in the iPhone 16. If you're going from, say, the 15, you start seeing the 48 megapixel camera. The 14 still has a really good camera, and you can get the 14 on sale on Boost Mobile for $199 by porting in a new phone number. So there are plenty of budget iPhones. If you're coming from an iPhone 10, 10s Max, 10R, time to upgrade. iPhone SE second generation, or even the first generation. I know a lot of people that don't want to get rid of their bigger phones, the smaller phone factor, because they like that smaller form factor. I don't blame people, because going to the 16 Pro Max is a beefy phone. And this phone is not made for everybody. It's got a big case. It's a big phone, and it's got a lot going on with this device. So understand when you get a 16, maybe the 15 Pro Max, I'd say stay away from the 16. It's been out now 6 months, 7 months almost, and a lot of people have complained about pretty poor battery life on the iPhone 16, just the normal model. They've also complained about some heating issues with the back of the iPhones, usually somewhere in this area here. It gets pretty hot after gaming, so be aware of that if you have a Pro Max or Pro model iPhone 16. Battery does drop pretty fast. I've been shown that as well. So, buying a phone, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Make sure you know what you're getting yourself into when you're buying a brand new iPhone moving forward. If you're someone who wants to stick to your older iPhone, let's say you do have an iPhone 11, look into getting a new battery life. If you're someone who wants to just stick to the same phone you have had, and I know a lot of people that do that, you can head to your local Apple store in the mall or wherever you have them in your city or state, and ask them, say, hey, I'd like to get a battery replacement for my iPhone. Can I do that? And that will give you another few years with an older iPhone. If you're coming from a XS Max and you really just like your phone and you want to be able to stick to it, because iCloud is supported. Apple's iCloud is supported on all iPhone devices going as far back as iPhone 6s. So there's plenty you can do. And I know somebody still has an iPhone 8 Plus, which is still being supported in security updates. So a lot of these older iPhones are still running relatively fine, better than some of the older Android phones I've seen over the last 6 years. The Samsung Galaxy S9 that came out in 2019 now is outdated, still stuck on I think Android 9. So at least with these iPhones, you're getting about close to 10 years of updates. Now 7 years of iOS updates and maybe 3 years of security updates. So pretty close to 9 years of support is coming from Apple, not just in software updates, but security updates. So Apple is probably one of the best companies you can get software updates. Now, I'd be completely honest with you, the retail price on most of the iPhones right now are a little bit overpriced, starting with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which you got here. The Pro Max comes in at, depending on the storage model you go for, if you're going for a 1 terabyte or a 2 terabyte model, you're looking at close to $2,000. Okay, I've seen this model here. This is the 512 gig model for $1,300. The 256 gig model is the lowest it goes, and that one you can get for around $1,100. That's not cheap by any means. No iPhone is cheap. We're also going to be reviewing we got a iPad M3 2025 edition, which we're going to be looking at. It's a 13-inch iPad. Thing's awesome. We're going to take a look at that, and that's their latest that just came out. We're also looking at the iPhone 16 Pro Max in pearl white, silver, I should say, and that's what I'm recording on right now, actually, as I speak. So, video quality on the new iPhones are amazing. If you're coming from an older, like I said, if you're coming from something like a iPhone 10, iPhone 8 Plus, going far back as 7, 8 years ago, yes, it is definitely time to maybe look at an upgrade. If you're coming from an iPhone 11, maybe consider getting a battery replacement. If you're on the iPhone, 16 Pro, maybe the iPhone 11 Pro Max, stick to it, maybe for one more year, depending on your battery health. Because the iPhone 11 Pro Max has about a year left of software updates and maybe 2 years of security updates. So the iPhone 11 Pro Max is still a pretty powerful device. Even the iPhone 11, standard iPhone 11, still runs a decent 3.2 gigahertz chipset. So it's not slow by any means. That's comparable to some, Snapdragon 6 Gen series chipsets that we see coming up from Snapdragon and companies like Samsung's A series of phones. So very compatible with those devices. Now, yeah, some of the older iPhones are lacking 5G. They may be lacking RAM, things like that. Thanks to iCloud storage and support, that can make those iPhones last longer. For Mr. Positive Live, I'm Mr. Positive. If you're coming from an older iPhone, as I repeat to myself again, stick to it. If you're coming from an iPhone 8, 10, 10s Max, 10R, yes. iPhone 11, it's something to think about. 12, you have a few more years of updates. If you're coming from an SE 2020 or SE 2022 iPhone, it may be considered worth an upgrade to, since it's been out 3 years, the iPhone SE 2022, and it's been 5 years for the iPhone SE 2020. It may be time to look into it, especially if you like smaller phones. Look into the iPhone 16e, which is technically the 4th generation SE. They won't tell you that, but they renamed it. It's 16e. It does come with one camera. It does have the body and the frame of the iPhone 14, and they get rid of dynamic island and give you the basic standard iPhone. It looks like an iPhone 11 style. It has the notch. So, if you're coming from an older iPhone, maybe something to think about. Thanks for watching Positive Talk Deal.